In this episode of True Crimes Unfold, we recount the shocking murder of Mai, a devoted husband whose life was tragically cut short amidst a web of betrayal, deceit, and infidelity. Revealing secrets through surveillance footage and investigative breakthroughs. Please note that events and scenarios in this video may be graphic for some viewers. Discretion is advised. Details of the videos are taken from actual case files. Before we begin, let us know in the comments where you're listening from and what type of cases you'd like us to cover next, and we'll make sure to add them to our list. Don't forget to subscribe to get new stories as soon as they're released. Settle in, get ready, and let's begin. Michelle Lang, or Meng Mai Lang, as her family affectionately called her, was a bright and ambitious young woman with her whole life ahead of her. Born in Taiwan and raised in Australia, Michelle balanced the traditions of her heritage with the opportunities of her adopted homeland. Her parents, hardworking immigrants, instilled in her a strong sense of perseverance, respect, and kindness. These qualities would become defining traits of Michelle's personality and the foundation of her dreams. Growing up in Sydney, Michelle excelled both academically and socially. She had a natural curiosity and a love for learning that endeared her to her teachers and peers. By the time she entered her late teens, Michelle had begun charting a path toward her future. She dreamed of becoming a teacher, a career inspired by her own experiences with mentors who had shaped her life. She wanted to give back, her mother later said, reflecting on Michelle's aspirations. She always believed in the power of education to change lives. Outside of school, Michelle enjoyed a rich social life. She had a close-knit group of friends who described her as someone who could light up a room with her laughter and positivity. She was the friend who remembered everyone's birthdays, showed up when it mattered most, and was always willing to lend a hand or a listening ear. Michelle was like a sister to us, one friend said. She made you feel like you were the most important person in the world when she was with you. Michelle's family life was equally vibrant. She was particularly close to her mother, who she often described as her role model. The two shared a bond built on mutual admiration and trust. Her father, while more reserved, supported her quietly, always ensuring she had the tools and encouragement to pursue her goals. Michelle also had a large extended family, and she often visited her aunt's home, where she enjoyed spending time with her younger cousins. To them, she was the fun, caring older sister who always brought warmth and laughter into their lives. It was during one of these visits that Michelle's life intersected with Derek Barrett, her aunt's husband. Derek was a man who to most seemed ordinary, a quiet, unassuming individual who worked a steady job and provided for his family. But beneath the surface lay a darkness that no one, including Michelle, could have anticipated. Michelle's relationship with Derek was cordial but distant. She respected him as her aunt's husband, but saw little of him during her visits, as he often kept to himself. Still, Derek had noticed Michelle. Over time, he developed an unhealthy obsession with her, a fixation that he carefully hid from those around him. His behavior began to shift subtly. He lingered longer in conversations, found excuses to be near Michelle during family gatherings, and became more withdrawn in his interactions with others. Michelle, busy with her studies and personal life, remained blissfully unaware of Derek's growing obsession. She had no reason to suspect that the man she saw as nothing more than an uncle by marriage harbored dangerous intentions. Her focus was on her future, on the opportunities ahead and the dreams she was working hard to achieve. As Michelle prepared to graduate from high school, her excitement about the future was infectious. She talked about attending university, exploring her career options, and traveling the world. Her family and friends shared in her enthusiasm, supporting her every step of the way. For Michelle, the world was a canvas waiting to be painted with the colors of her ambition and optimism. But amidst the joy and anticipation of what lay ahead, a shadow loomed in the form of Derek Barrett. His obsession with Michelle deepened, fueled by fantasies and a growing detachment from reality. To those around him, Derek's behavior seemed increasingly erratic, though no one could have predicted the horrifying events that were about to unfold. On the surface, Michelle's life appeared idyllic, a young woman on the cusp of adulthood, surrounded by love and support. Yet, beneath this veneer of normalcy, danger was quietly taking shape. Derek's fixation was a ticking time bomb, one that would forever shatter the lives of Michelle and those who loved her. Michelle's story is a tragic reminder of how quickly life can change, how trust can be weaponized, and how the most ordinary seeming individuals can harbor unspeakable darkness. As her family and friends later reflected on her life, they spoke not only of the joy she brought to those around her, but also of the lessons her loss taught them about vigilance, love, and resilience. In the weeks leading up to her death, Michelle remained blissfully unaware of the danger that lurked in her uncle's mind. Her days were filled with the laughter of her friends, the love of her family, and the dreams she was eager to pursue. She could not have imagined that her kindness and warmth would one day be met with such betrayal. And as the truth about Derek's actions would later come to light, the world would learn just how devastating that betrayal would be. On a quiet autumn evening in 2015, Michelle Lang arrived at her aunt's home to babysit her younger cousins. It was a task she often took on with joy. Spending time with her cousins was something she genuinely loved. Her aunt, trusting Michelle implicitly, left for work feeling confident that her children were in the best of hands. Michelle was known for her warmth, responsibility, and caring nature, which made her a favorite among the younger members of her family. Derek Barrett, Michelle's uncle by marriage, was also at home that evening. To Michelle, this was unremarkable. Derek's quiet and reserved demeanor had never given her a reason to feel uncomfortable, despite his occasional peculiar behavior. As far as she knew, Derek was simply a distant relative who kept to himself. But for Derek, this evening was different. His obsession with Michelle, carefully hidden for years, had reached a breaking point. For weeks, he had been plotting his next move, fueled by a twisted fixation that had taken over his thoughts. To him, Michelle was no longer a niece by marriage. She was an object of his dark desires, a target for his monstrous intentions. That night, after Michelle had put her cousins to bed, Derek confronted her. What began as a seemingly ordinary interaction quickly escalated into something far more sinister. Derek's demeanor shifted, and Michelle, sensing something was wrong, tried to defuse the situation. But Derek's intentions were clear. He wanted to act on the obsession that had consumed him. In a brutal and premeditated act of violence, Derek attacked Michelle. She fought valiantly, her survival instincts kicking in as she tried to escape his grip. Neighbors later reported hearing faint sounds of a struggle, but dismissed them as household noise. Inside the home, Michelle's life was slipping away as she faced the unthinkable. A betrayal by someone she had no reason to distrust. Derek, driven by his depravity, strangled Michelle to death. The brutality of the act was shocking, and the aftermath was even more chilling. To cover his crime, Derek placed Michelle's lifeless body in the trunk of his car. He drove to a secluded location, a short distance from the family home, where he left her body in a ditch. Derek then returned to the house, attempting to resume a facade of normalcy. The following morning, Michelle's aunt returned home and was immediately alarmed by her niece's absence. Michelle's belongings were still in the house, but there was no sign of her. Her phone went unanswered, and calls to friends and family yielded no information about her whereabouts. Panicked, her aunt contacted the police to report Michelle missing. The search for Michelle began swiftly, with police canvassing the area and interviewing neighbors. It didn't take long for investigators to uncover inconsistencies in Derek's account of the previous night. He claimed to have been asleep during Michelle's visit and feigned ignorance about her disappearance. But his demeanor raised suspicions. His answers were evasive, and his behavior erratic. 2 days later, a local jogger stumbled upon Michelle's body in the ditch where Derek had left her. The discovery sent shock waves through the community. Michelle's family, already consumed with worry, was devastated by the confirmation of her death. For those who knew her, the tragedy was incomprehensible. How could someone so full of life and kindness meet such a horrific end? As investigators pieced together the events leading to Michelle's murder, Derek's involvement became increasingly clear. Forensic evidence from the family home revealed traces of Michelle's blood, and fibers from the trunk of Derek's car matched those on Michelle's clothing. Surveillance footage from nearby streets placed Derek's vehicle near the location where Michelle's body was found, directly contradicting his initial statements. When confronted with this evidence, Derek's demeanor shifted. He grew defensive and hostile, claiming that Michelle's death was an accident. But his story failed to align with the physical evidence, and his increasingly erratic behavior only deepened investigators' suspicions. The most damning piece of evidence came from a USB drive recovered during a search of Derek's belongings. On it were files that revealed Derek's long-standing obsession with Michelle, photos he had secretly taken of her, journal entries detailing his fantasies, and internet searches about methods of strangulation. The discovery painted a chilling picture of premeditation and depravity, leaving no doubt about Derek's intentions. For Michelle's family, the revelation that her uncle by marriage was responsible for her death was a double blow. They were already grappling with the loss of a beloved daughter, niece, and cousin, and now they had to contend with the betrayal of someone they had welcomed into their lives. Michelle's mother, in particular, struggled to comprehend how someone she had trusted could commit such an unthinkable act. In the days following Michelle's murder, her family spoke publicly about her life and the joy she brought to those around her. Her father described her as the light of our family, a young woman whose kindness and warmth had touched everyone she met. She was taken from us by a monster, he said in a tearful statement, but we will not let her memory be overshadowed by his actions. News of Michelle's murder spread quickly, sparking outrage and disbelief throughout the community. Vigils were held in her honor, with hundreds gathering to light candles, share memories, and demand justice. Her story resonated far beyond her immediate circle, as people from all walks of life grappled with the senselessness of her death. Advocacy groups used Michelle's story to highlight the dangers of unchecked obsessions and the need for greater awareness around domestic violence and familial abuse. Her name became a rallying cry for change, a symbol of the importance of vigilance and the devastating consequences of misplaced trust. As the investigation continued, the full extent of Derek's depravity came to light. His actions revealed a man who had hidden his true nature for years, using the trust and familiarity of family connections as a shield for his darker impulses. The evidence against him was overwhelming, setting the stage for a trial that would bring his monstrous behavior to public light. For Michelle, her kindness and trust had been met with the ultimate betrayal. But even in the face of such tragedy, her family and community vowed to honor her memory, ensuring that her story would not be forgotten. The truth about Derek Barrett would soon be revealed in court, where justice for Michelle would become the focus of an entire nation. The discovery of Michelle Lang's body in a secluded ditch marked the start of an intense and thorough investigation. From the outset, the police were determined to uncover the truth behind her tragic death. What they found painted a chilling portrait of premeditation and betrayal, with Derek Barrett, Michelle's uncle by marriage, at the center of it all. The forensic evidence recovered from the family home and Derek's car provided a solid foundation for the investigation. Blood traces matching Michelle's DNA were found on the carpet in the living room, contradicting Derek's claims that he had no interaction with her that night. The fibers recovered from the trunk of Derek's car matched those from Michelle's clothing, placing her in the vehicle after her death. Surveillance footage proved equally damning. Cameras in the area captured Derek's car leaving the family home late at night, heading toward the location where Michelle's body was later discovered. Investigators used timestamps to establish a timeline that directly implicated Derek in the transportation and disposal of her body. When confronted with this evidence, Derek's initial composure began to falter. His statements to police were riddled with inconsistencies, and his attempts to explain away the evidence only deepened their suspicions. Detectives described Derek's demeanor as defensive and agitated, a stark contrast to the calm and collected persona he had initially presented. The breakthrough moment in the investigation came when detectives searched Derek's belongings and found a USB drive hidden in his desk. What they uncovered on the drive shocked even seasoned investigators. It contained hundreds of photos of Michelle, many taken without her knowledge. These ranged from family gatherings to private moments in the house, suggesting a disturbing level of surveillance and fixation. More troubling were Derek's journal entries, saved as digital files on the drive. They detailed his growing obsession with Michelle, describing her in objectifying and possessive terms. Some entries included fantasies about harming her, which closely mirrored the circumstances of her death. Investigators also found internet searches related to strangulation, disposing of bodies, and avoiding detection by law enforcement. The USB drive was a treasure trove of evidence that not only confirmed Derek's guilt, but also revealed the premeditated nature of his actions. Armed with overwhelming evidence, police arrested Derek Barrett on charges of first-degree murder and obstruction of justice. The news of his arrest sent shockwaves through the community and left Michelle's family grappling with a mix of relief and devastation. On one hand, they were relieved that the person responsible for Michelle's death had been apprehended. On the other, the revelation that it was a family member compounded their grief and betrayal. Derek maintained his innocence, insisting that Michelle's death was an accident. He claimed she had fallen and hit her head during an argument, and in a panic, he had disposed of her body. However, this narrative failed to align with the forensic evidence and the contents of the USB drive. Prosecutors were confident they had a watertight case against him. Derek's trial began in mid-2016. Drawing significant media attention, the courtroom was filled with Michelle's family and friends, members of the public, and reporters eager to document the proceedings. For Michelle's loved ones, the trial was a painful but necessary step toward justice. The prosecution presented a methodical case, starting with forensic experts who testified about the evidence recovered from the crime scene and Derek's car. They detailed how the blood patterns, fibers, and surveillance footage contradicted Derek's claims and pointed to foul play. The USB drive, however, was the centerpiece of the prosecution's argument. Its contents provided a chilling glimpse into Derek's mindset and left no doubt about his premeditated intent. Michelle's mother took the stand, delivering an emotional testimony about her daughter's character, dreams, and the impact of her loss. Her words moved many in the courtroom to tears and underscored the gravity of Derek's betrayal. She trusted him, Michelle's mother said. We all did, and he used that trust to destroy her. Derek's defense team attempted to argue that his actions were the result of panic rather than malice. They claimed that his obsession with Michelle, while troubling, did not prove intent to kill. However, the evidence against him was overwhelming, and the jury struggled to reconcile his defense with the calculated nature of his actions. After 3 weeks of testimony, the jury deliberated for only 2 days before reaching a unanimous verdict: guilty of first-degree murder. Derek showed little emotion as the verdict was read, but the sense of relief in the courtroom was palpable. The judge sentenced him to life imprisonment without the possibility of parole, condemning his actions as a profound betrayal of trust and humanity. For Michelle's family, the verdict provided some measure of closure. While it could never undo the pain of losing her, knowing that Derek would face justice brought a sense of accountability. Outside the courthouse, Michelle's mother expressed gratitude to the investigators and prosecutors who had worked tirelessly on the case. "This doesn't bring Michelle back," she said, "but it ensures that he can never hurt anyone else." The trial and its outcome sparked widespread discussions about the dangers of unchecked obsession and the betrayal of trust within families. Advocacy groups used Michelle's story to raise awareness about the warning signs of predatory behavior and the importance of vigilance in protecting vulnerable individuals. Michelle's community honored her memory with a candlelight vigil where hundreds gathered to celebrate her life and commit to preventing similar tragedies. Her story became a rallying cry for change, inspiring efforts to improve education around abuse and strengthen protections for those at risk. Though the trial marked the end of Derek Barrett's freedom, Michelle's family and friends knew their work was not done. They vowed to honor her legacy by sharing her story and advocating for greater awareness of the dangers lurking within seemingly safe environments. Michelle's life, though tragically cut short, became a symbol of resilience, love, and the enduring fight for justice. The conclusion of Derek Barrett's trial brought justice for Michelle Lang and her grieving family, but the journey toward healing had only just begun. The weight of her loss, compounded by the betrayal of someone they trusted, left Michelle's family and friends grappling with deep emotional scars. Yet, amidst their pain, they found strength in honoring Michelle's memory and ensuring her story would inspire change. Michelle's parents, devastated by the loss of their only daughter, faced the daunting task of rebuilding their lives without her. For Michelle's mother, the bond they shared was irreplaceable. "She wasn't just my daughter," she said tearfully in an interview. "She was my best friend, my light, and my inspiration." Her father, a man of few words, expressed his grief through quiet resilience. He became a pillar of strength for the family, supporting his wife and ensuring Michelle's memory lived on in their daily lives. Together, they established a small memorial in their home, filled with photos, letters, and mementos that captured Michelle's vibrant spirit. The outpouring of support from the community was overwhelming. Michelle's story had touched countless lives, and people from all walks of life came together to offer their condolences and help the family heal. Vigils, fundraisers, and memorials were organized to celebrate Michelle's life and raise awareness about the dangers of unchecked obsession and abuse. At a candlelight vigil held shortly after the trial, hundreds gathered to honor Michelle's memory. Her friends spoke of her kindness, ambition, and unwavering positivity. Her former classmates and teachers shared stories of her dedication and passion for helping others. The vigil became a poignant reminder of the impact Michelle had on those around her and the profound loss her death represented. Determined to ensure that Michelle's story would not be forgotten, her family channeled their grief into advocacy. They partnered with local organizations to raise awareness about domestic violence, familial abuse, and the warning signs of predatory behavior. Michelle's mother became a vocal advocate, speaking at schools, community centers, and public events about the importance of vigilance and education. Michelle's trust was used against her, her mother said during one event. But if her story can save even one person from the same fate, then her light will continue to shine. The family also worked to support reforms in the justice system, particularly in how cases of obsession and abuse within families are handled. They called for stricter penalties for offenders, better resources for victims, and mandatory education programs to help individuals recognize and address dangerous behaviors. Their efforts sparked important conversations and inspired meaningful changes in their community. To honor Michelle's life and dreams, Her family established the Michelle Lang Foundation, logically dedicated to supporting at-risk youth and advocating for safer communities. The foundation provided scholarships for students pursuing careers in education, Michelle's own dream, and funded programs aimed at raising awareness about abuse and fostering positive relationships. Through the foundation, Michelle's family sought to turn their tragedy into a force for good. Michelle wanted to make a difference in the world, her father said at the foundation's launch. And through this work, her legacy will live on. The foundation's impact was immediate and profound. Within its first year, it had awarded scholarships to dozens of students and partnered with organizations to deliver workshops on abuse prevention and relationship safety. Michelle's story became a cornerstone of these programs, reminding participants of the importance of vigilance, empathy, and resilience. For those who knew Michelle, her life and death became a symbol of resilience and the enduring fight for justice. Her ability to inspire others, even in the face of tragedy, resonated deeply with her community and beyond. Survivors of abuse and families affected by similar crimes reached out to Michelle's family, sharing their own stories and drawing strength from her legacy. Social media campaigns using hashtags like #JusticeForMichelle and #HerLightLivesOn amplified her story and brought global attention to issues of abuse and betrayal within families. Michelle's legacy became a rallying cry for change, uniting people in their efforts to build safer and more compassionate communities. Though the pain of losing Michelle would never fully fade, her family found solace in the impact she continued to have. They focused on the positive change her story inspired, the lives saved by their advocacy, and the countless people who found hope and strength in her memory. Michelle's story didn't end with her death, her mother said. It's a story of love, resilience, and the power of turning tragedy into action. As the years passed, Michelle's name became synonymous with hope and change. Her legacy endured not just through the foundation and advocacy work, but also in the hearts of those who loved her. In the face of unimaginable loss, Michelle's family and community chose to honor her life by ensuring her light would never be extinguished. Michelle Lang's story serves as a reminder of the importance of vigilance, the strength of the human spirit, and the enduring power of love and justice. Her life, though tragically cut short, continues to inspire and guide others, proving that even in the darkest moments, light can prevail. Michelle Lang's tragic death left a lasting impact on her family, friends, and community, but its echoes reached far beyond those who knew her personally. Her story exposed broader societal issues, such as the dangers of unchecked obsession, the vulnerability of individuals within families, and the failures of systems meant to protect them. As her legacy grew, it inspired conversations and initiatives aimed at creating a safer, more vigilant society. One of the most unsettling aspects of Michelle's story was the revelation that the perpetrator, Derek Barrett, was a trusted family member. The betrayal of someone so close to her underscored the complexity of familial abuse, where danger often hides in plain sight. Advocacy groups used Michelle's case to raise awareness about this often overlooked form of violence, emphasizing that abuse and obsession can exist even within seemingly stable and loving families. Experts highlighted the warning signs of obsessive and predatory behavior, patterns that may seem benign on the surface but indicate deeper issues. For Derek, his fixation on Michelle had grown over years, yet no one recognized the severity of his intentions. This failure to identify and address red flags became a focal point in discussions about improving vigilance and education within communities. Michelle's case also revealed gaps in the systems designed to prevent and address domestic and familial violence. Advocacy organizations called for reforms in several areas, including education and awareness, introducing mandatory training for educators, social workers, and healthcare professionals to recognize signs of obsession, manipulation, and abuse. Support systems for victims, ensuring victims of familial abuse have access to confidential resources and safe reporting mechanisms, even when the abuser is a family member. Tougher penalties, advocating for harsher sentences for perpetrators of familial violence to serve as both punishment and deterrence. Lawmakers, moved by the public outcry and Michelle's family's advocacy, introduced several policy proposals to address these gaps. These included funding for abuse, prevention programs, expanding access to mental health resources, and strengthening legal protections for at-risk individuals. While progress was slow, Michelle's case became a symbol of the urgent need for change. The case also prompted discussions about the role of mental health in understanding and preventing predatory behavior. Derek's actions revealed a deeply disturbed individual whose obsession had gone unchecked for years. Advocates argued that better access to mental health services, particularly for individuals exhibiting troubling behaviors, could help prevent such tragedies. Workshops and campaigns focused on educating communities about the importance of early intervention, emphasizing that seeking help for someone showing obsessive or predatory tendencies is not only compassionate but necessary. Michelle's story served as a powerful example of how ignoring these signs can have devastating consequences. Michelle's story resonated far beyond her hometown, thanks in part to the tireless efforts of her family and the reach of social media. Campaigns like #JusticeForMichelle and #HerLightLivesOn mobilize people around the world to share her story and advocate for change. Survivors of abuse and families affected by similar tragedies found solidarity in her legacy, using her story as a platform to demand greater protections and accountability. The international attention spurred collaborations between advocacy groups and governments to address the root causes of abuse and violence. Michelle's name became synonymous with resilience and the fight for justice, inspiring countless initiatives to create safer environments for women and vulnerable individuals. Through the Michelle Lang Foundation component placement, her family continued to honor her life by supporting at-risk youth, funding education programs, and raising awareness about familial abuse. The foundation's work expanded rapidly, partnering with schools, community organizations, and governments to deliver impactful programs. Each scholarship awarded and workshop held was a testament to Michelle's enduring impact. Michelle's mother, now a prominent advocate, often reflected on the lessons her daughter's story taught the world. Michelle's death was a tragedy, she said in a public address. But her life was a gift, a reminder that love, compassion, and vigilance can change lives. It's up to us to ensure her story isn't just one of loss, but of hope and transformation. Michelle Lang's story is a sobering reminder of the dangers of unchecked obsession and the need for vigilance, education, and systemic reform. It challenges society to confront uncomfortable truths about familial violence and to prioritize the safety and well-being of individuals in all environments. Her legacy is a call to action, a demand for justice, accountability, and change. It's a reminder that even in the darkest moments, light can emerge, illuminating a path toward a safer, more compassionate world. Michelle's life, though tragically cut short, continues to inspire and guide efforts to ensure that no one else suffers the way she did. As her mother often said, Michelle believed in making the world a better place. It's up to us to carry that belief forward. Michelle Lang's light lives on, not only in the hearts of those who knew her, but in the countless lives touched by her story and the movement for change it inspired.